Hello, my dear students. Hope you're all fine. So, today I would like to talk about the poem No Men Are Foreign in General and about the poet James Kirkup. Okay, so this is the image of the poet James Harold Kirkup, and he was born on 23 April 1918 in South Shield, England. Okay, James Harold Kirkup. He was born in 1918 in South Shield, England. So 1918, you must know that, or you may know that it is the First World Wars took place in 1914 to 1918. Okay, so the 20th century witnessed, or the world saw many wars in the 20th century. First World War, Second World War, many wars happened in 20th century. So here, James Harold Kirkup, he was born in 1918, the last year of First World War. He born in England. So basically, James Kirkup, he was an English poet. He was a prolific English poet, and he's a translator, and he was a travel writer too. And he openly demonstrated his protest against the Second World War. So I told you that the 20th century witnessed many wars, and the poet James Kirkup, he was against war. He was actually an anti-war poet. So he openly demonstrated his hatred or his opposition or his protest against the Second World War. That was in the 1939 to 1939 to 1945. Okay, that was the time period of Second World War. So he openly demonstrated his protest against the Second World War, and he wrote over 45 books. And his first published collection of poems was entitled as The Drowned Sailor. The Drowned Sailor was his first published collection of poems. Okay, so the other notable works of James Kirkup are this Submerged Village and Other Poems, The Correct Passion and Other Poems, The Descent into the Cave and Other Poems, No Men Are Foreign, The Body Servant Poem of Exile, and many other works are there, but I just mentioned the notable works of James Kirkup here. So the poem that we are going to study is No Men Are Foreign. No Men Are Foreign. So this poem is a protest against xenophobia, racial hatred, and armfare. So what is xenophobia? Xenophobia means fear of foreigners. A fear of foreigners is called xenophobia. So this poem is against this xenophobia, and this poem is against the racial hatred and armfare. Okay. So basically this poem is a anti-war poem. No Men Are Foreign is an anti-war poem. And here the poet exposes the horror and brutality of all war. Okay, so this beautifully written upon the theme of humanity in each human being. So this No Men Are Foreign, which was composed in 1966. You have to remember that this poem was composed in 1966, is actually against xenophobia. I told you, against xenophobia, against racial hatred and armfare. So the poem, which begins and concludes with the rhetorical assertion that is, remember, no men are strange, no country is foreign, that actually warns the readers of perils of separation. So we can see this rhetorical line in this poem, remember, no men are foreign, or no men are strange, no country is foreign. So this warns the readers against separation. Okay, so This is basically about the poet and the general thing about the poem. So, the poem No Men Are Foreign is written by James Kirkup. He was a prolific English poet and translator, and he was a travel writer too. And he was born in England, and he died in 2009. Okay, he died in 2009, and from his birth itself, he was like a in his early life he was like an old boy, out he was like an old boy out, because he loves solitude, he loves apartments, he loves being alone. And he openly, most of his poems or works emphasizes opposition against war and racism and etc. He has wrote many works, several dozen collections of poetry, and 6 volumes of autobiography, and translations of numerous works. Many things he wrote, many things, over 45 books. And I told you about his first collection of poem, that is the Drone Sailor, and I mentioned many notable works of him. And the world witnessed a series of wars in the 20th century, I told you. And any war is actually based on the notion that people of a country are essentially different from those of the neighboring one. Okay, because of that notion, war all often happens, because people thinks that we are different from the peoples of other nation. That is why this a war happened on the basis of color, creed, geography, language. We think that on the basis of this color, creed, geography, and language, we are different from others. That is the reason of war. This myth of racial superiority. There is a myth of racial superiority. That means we are the superior race. The thought of that is actually the cause of wars. And cultural hegemony and constructed to differentiate one other from other. Those were the things that leads to war. And most of the time, artists and creative writers try to eradicate these boundaries, imaginary boundaries. Actually, these are imaginary boundaries created by man itself, right? So writers and artists, the creative writers, always try to eradicate this imaginary lines, the shadow lines. Okay, so here in this poem, James Kirkup, as against, he protested against the xenophobia, the fear of foreigners, and he protested against wars, and he wanted to establish a brotherhood, universal brotherhood here. Okay, so this is all about the poem in general. So we can discuss more in the next class.